What's up, everyone? We're back at it today again with the bug, and it's time to test out some of those new parts we installed. If you didn't see the last video, I'll put a link here or here. But what we did last video is we installed a new front suspension from Topline, including a sway bar. We installed new ball joints, new tie rod ends, pretty much everything in the front end for steering and suspension. And we also installed front disc brakes. So now the bug is about 3 inches lower with some badass disc brakes on it. So in this video, we're gonna take it out and test everything. So before we get into that, the bug hasn't ran in about 3 months, just because of waiting for parts and everything while we're putting everything in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna disconnect the fuel fuse, the fuel system fuse, turn it over a couple times, just make sure it builds up fuel pressure, oil pressure, so everything looks good, make sure everything's lubricated, and then we'll go and fire it up and get it running. All right, so we got the fuel system fuse pulled. We got our other key installed for power. So now what should happen is when I hit the power for the car, even before I turn it over, we should hear that the fuel pump doesn't turn on. So here we go. All right, perfect. I updated just a few settings on here, so we're going to try them out. Nothing crazy. So now we have oil pressure on here. I don't know if the reading's exactly right, but we'll crank it up and at least make sure that it goes up. Make sure we're in neutral. I'm not sure if that's even actually connected to what I think. Now that I'm actually thinking about it, we'll be right back. Alright, well, I honestly couldn't figure out how to do the oil pressure through the Mega Squirt. I've always just been using my gauge, which is like analog and direct, well, not analog, it's still digital, but directly connected to the motor. So with that, I connected the fuel system fuse, and this will be the first time we fire it up in 3 months. Let's see how reliable this setup is. Fuel pump on. Alright, a little bit of a squeaky belt, but it did fire right up. Not a huge deal, not the end of the world. Alright, so we're going to start with just a short drive, make sure there's no leaks, come back, and then we'll kind of take it from there. Alright. toughest part is probably going to be getting out of the driveway right here. So we'll just take it nice and slow. Alright, so we've been driving for a good 20 minutes without turning the car off, and everything's looking great. About 100 degrees on the air intake. The coolant's going right between like 180 up to 205 maybe, but then always comes back down. AFRs are looking good. There's a little bit of a rattle I hear up front, so we'll pull it back into the garage and just check, make sure everything's tight. But yeah, I'm really happy with how it's looking so far. Alright, so we're back, and we got good news and we got a little bit of bad news. So the good news is ride's great. No rubbing on any of the turns. We can get in and out of the driveway without bottoming out, so I think the height is good. The bad news is this weirdness we're getting. Like I said, there's some creaking. If you listen. I don't know what that is, so we're gonna figure that out real quick. Alright, so we got it in here. It sounds pretty repeatable. It's only in like the small movements. If I do a large movement, it doesn't even seem to make that sound, so it makes me feel like something's binding. I'm pretty sure it's gonna be that pitman arm, so let's get this lifted up and let's do a little investigating. Alright, so we dug in a little more with it up, and you can still hear the noise. We can replicate it just by moving the tires. But if I put this down, you can replicate it just by moving the tires. And I'm near positive that it's at that idle arm bracket. So we're going to take that out real quick, try to mess with it a little bit, maybe grease it up, and then we'll put it back in and see if we can get the noise to go away. We'll also, before we take it out, we'll just confirm that the noise goes away without having that connected. Okay, so here we have the culprit, and if you listen closely, so we'll figure out how to get this working right, and then we'll get it back in there. Alright, so we got this down to the point where it's not squeaking by adding in a washer, but this still, I just don't feel great about this bushing. Brand new, it was spinning in the housing. I don't know if the housing was just out of spec from being too big, the bushing was too small, but long story short, this is just a temporary fix we're going to deal with for now so we can drive the car for a little bit. I ordered a bronze or brass one, I can't remember. So that'll be on the way, which hopefully will alleviate the problem with this non-fitting one. I was thinking about almost tacking it so that it doesn't spin, but I'm going to get the brass one because that's a better fix anyways for the long term. So we'll do this for now. We'll put it back in, install it, and see if the squeaking has gone away. Alright, so unfortunately that didn't seem to help at all. It's definitely that thing though, and you can hear it. It's only when on small movements. If I go a big movement, just that initial shift. So I think I'm going to take it back off and do another check on it. Maybe just add a little more grease. But we'll see. Alright, so we get the bracket out, and I'm just going to go through this quickly to kind of talk us all through it. So on almost every other bracket like this I've seen for other Volkswagens, this is a spline shaft, and that's because the goal is to have the bolt and the arm rotate together. It's not happening with this, and with this setup, and part of it is because this bushing seems to be undersized, so it's pretty easy to rotate in the housing. The other problem is, I think, because we have so much overlap here of extra rubber, if you see the shape of the bolt, this bolt this shaft, or whatever, this arm actually bottoms out on it, and then we'd be able to pinch it with the bolt, but the problem is, this is actually taking up too much space, I believe, so we can't actually even get the shaft fully bottomed onto the arm. So I'm actually going to take the angle grinder and just cut this off. I have a bronze one coming in because this thing's just terrible, but for the time being I'm going to try to make this bushing work. And so I'm going to cut it down so we get a little more stick out here, so we can actually bottom out the arm on the bolt rather than bottoming it out on the bushing. Okay, so even after all that, cutting the bushing, doing all these different things, still that awful creaking binding sound. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I still think it has to do with that idle arm bracket, if I'm being honest, but I'm gonna take a chance when my wife has some time so I can have a second set of hands. Just turn the wheel while I'm actually under there to confirm if it's the bracket. Because like I said, we do have a new bushing coming in, which hopefully that will fix the problem, but before I start going and just throwing parts at it, I want to make sure I'm actually fixing the problem at hand. So we will investigate soon and let you guys know. Alright, so we're going to try one more thing before we really start to get kind of down on this. So, and I can't believe I didn't think of this before, but every other car I've ever done the suspension on, you generally don't torque it until it's on the ground. And maybe that's why we're having binding, because things were torqued when it was, you know, in kind of like full relaxed state. So we need to have it under load and tighten it up that way. So I'm going to give it a shot, because really that's kind of the last thing we can try before really diving into things. So we'll lightly loosen anything that we put in here, you know, within reason. We're not going to like take apart the whole center link and everything, but we'll loosen everything. We'll drop it down on a couple pieces of wood so I can still get another car, and then I'll snug it all up to torque from there. Hopefully that gets rid of the binding sound. Again, the car was driving great. It's just that sound with like just a little bit of wheel motion, it gets that creak. And then once you're kind of like moving the wheel through its full turn or something, it goes away. So hopefully just like a binding or something like that, because I think the drop link now is good. It shouldn't be causing us any issues. So we'll give this all a shot, and we'll see where we end up. Alright, so after a lot of investigation, I think I found our problem. I'm pretty sure. So we can see here the brand new tie rods. These are stiff, but they move. And this tie rod is stiff, but it moves. The new center link, however, oops, there we go, slam it. Doesn't really matter anymore. Does not move at all. Not even a little bit. So that's probably why we're getting binding, because this is not a ball joint at this point. It's just a fixed rod. And same thing on this end. So I'm going to do my best to free them up, but that's not good. That's always going to be an issue now. So I'm going to get another one on order. And I'll update you guys once I have an idea how quickly I can get it and where we're going to go from there. Everything drove great. It's just, unfortunately, the center link or drag link wasn't working as intended. Alright, so we jacked it up, checked everything out. Couldn't really find anything immediately other than that drag link. The ball joint's been completely stiff, so I think I'm going to put that on the list of things we need. It also seems like maybe it's something with the steering box. Maybe we have too much slop in that. So we're going to check that as well. Maybe order a new steering box, because that's pretty much the only thing we didn't replace. Like I mentioned, we also had the bushing coming in for the idle arm. But so as you can see, we just put it on its weight here. And even right now, just on its weight, without everything tightened, it's not making any of those horrendous noises. So I'm hoping maybe if we tighten it up that everything will actually just like go away. That's super optimistic, but we're going to give it a shot, because either way I'm going to drive it as is around town and stuff until we get the new parts in. Alright, so I think I have surprisingly good news actually. So I showed you guys the center link, I think, and those were really stiff. I'm not even 100% sure if they were supposed to move or not, because I talked to some other people on Instagram who also work on bugs and even Subaru soft bugs, and they had the same problem where those ball joints were completely frozen almost in the center link. But either way, just from taking everything apart, loosening it, and then what I did differently this time was I lowered it back on the ground before torquing everything, and it sounds like that noise may have gone away. It may be hard for you guys to tell, but this is actually tire noise. The noise in the steering actually went away. So it's pretty late right now. It's like 9:30. I'm going to take it out for a drive still. I think you guys can probably tell that filming at night hasn't gone very well for me. I don't have a really good filming setup right now. But I'll try my best, and hopefully I can get like a suction cup or something to put on the windshield so that I can do some more in-car footage. But with that, I'll get it fired up, try to show you guys. We'll take it for a spin, and worst comes to worst, I'll do the same thing in the morning and share it with you. But I'm hoping the sound's gone away and we can actually start pushing the bug a little bit harder. The other thing that I've kind of mentioned is, it doesn't seem like I'm ever getting full boost. I thought it was a boost leak, but I actually think, and this kind of makes sense, I've been reading, but I removed the factory boost controller. And not that I was trying to do more pressure than the wastegate, but when you have a boost controller, it actually is better at keeping that wastegate shut until you hit the right number. And if you don't have a boost controller, what can happen is it can actually just gradually relieve pressure. So that may be why I'm not getting the PSI or the boost numbers, I think. So at some point I may also just pull the boost reference on the wastegate and gently drive the car to see if we can get some positive pressure. Now, definitely gonna be gently, because if I pull that boost reference, the wastegate's not gonna open at all. But I wanna see if I can get more than 5 PSI, because that's all I've been able to do without really leaning on the car, which I'm not ready to do yet. But I'm hoping I can still drive under like partial throttle 50% and actually get some boost, because it seems like now that we're getting a little closer, the brakes are good, the front suspension seems good. I want to lean on it a little bit more and really see what we can do with this thing. But like I said, we'll take it out now, make sure everything is good, and we will update you as soon as we can. All right, so it's a new day today. We took it out last night, but I couldn't get any good footage. Good news is it seems like the creak is gone. So I'm going to take you guys out with me today and hopefully show you how it sounds, maybe lean on it a little bit, and try to get some rollers if we can. So here we go.
Alright, so everything's going exactly as I had asked. I'm gonna do one more pull so you guys can hear a little bit of the blow-off valve because it sounds really good. Alright, let's try to get some blow-off noise before we head back home. That actually went super well, so I'm not gonna push my luck and I'm just gonna call it for today. Suspension felt great. The creak in the steering is completely gone. We still leaned on the bug a little bit, but not as much as I'd hoped. We haven't even gotten into positive boost. But you heard that blow-off valve, so we're definitely turning. I think it's going to be time to either add a boost controller or maybe just pull that wastegate reference. Once we have the tune in just a little bit better, we're still getting some lean spots and stuff like that as we get higher up into the load and the RPM. But like I said, I couldn't be happier with where we're at right now, so we'll call it for today. Moving forward, there's really not a lot of big projects left on this. It's just going to be a lot of tuning, street driving, and having fun in it. But with that, we will be diving into the truck sooner than later. So be sure to subscribe for more content. If you like what you saw, hit the like button and hope to see you again soon.